Scene 10. Okay, hello, internet world. This is Norma Joe with no wig on. I couldn't fucking deal with a wig. I'm supposed to be going to work right now and get an early jump on my job, try to make early money, but I'm sitting here at the computer instead. So hopefully my dad doesn't wake up. Hopefully I'm not too loud, because, I can't hear myself. I can, but kind of not really. Anyway, whatever. I'm trying to do this in haste. So anyway, yeah, last night I just finished watching that show Loki. I've been watching that show for like a week with my mom, and the only reason I wanted to see it, well, I'll get into this later, but the only reason I was willing to see it more like is because it's only 6 episodes, and it sucked. It sucked. It was so fucking bad. It was terrible, and I told my mom all my grievances with it last night, so I don't want to go on and on. I just want to get to the recap, because that's what's fun to me. But this morning in haste, I wrote some of my complaints down, and I wrote myself a script, because if I didn't write myself a script, that I would just go on and on and on and on, like I'm doing now, which is one of my complaints with the show. So let me get started. Okay, first of all, the writing seems like it was done by a teenage role player. When you role play, you're not thinking about making a well-rounded, trimmed, coherent story. You're just passing the story back and forth between you and your partner, in parentheses, or partners, and playing around in a fictional world, having arguments that get too real, trying to work out shit through your avatar, trying to experience love and friendships, etc. You just make it up as you go, which is like the show. They had no fucking point to it. The story goes nowhere. It just wanders. I know they want to get a second season, but accomplishing nothing for 6 hours doesn't draw me in to see more. I will not watch a second season. No, I won't. So many tropes. Oh my god. I mean, it's still Disney, but still. Such a waste of time. I can't stress this enough. They need an editor. Every episode could have been half its length. Cut the fat on this dumb dialogue that goes back and forth endlessly, and so many times they literally just stall before a fight. Yeah, they just fucking stand there with dramatic music playing in the background. Tension building is good in a few seconds, not 5 minutes. Don't just stand around. Do something. Yes. Like, there's so many times when you think they're gonna do something, and they just don't. They just are literally stalling. The audience, not each other even. The audience. They try to bring in some deep conversation about, oh god, this is where it really gets bad. I'm going to go into this later in the recap, so I don't need to go into it at length ad nauseum, as they say. But let me just read this. Try to bring in some deep conversation about authority, free will, etc., but don't even. Too little, too late, and it lacks all subtlety. Talk about heavy-handed. These characters just monologue, and in the end, they ultimately have nothing profound to say. It's just, yeah, life sucks, but deal with it. Don't try to rebel. This is the only way. Bullshit message. If you don't fit in, you're broken and should be fixed. Yeah, that shit should be crazy. Ever seen Twilight Zone? They had some things to say about conformity. Yes. This talk of the glorious purpose irritates me. Maybe everyone doesn't want to leave a huge mark on the world. Maybe you just want to live your own life, support yourself without being oppressed, and be left alone. Ever think of that? Who is the show made for? Who are they even talking to? They should have just left out all the times they tried to explain the magic and futuristic shit with technobabble. I think it's meant to be funny, but it's not. It's just confusing, and like they're trying to be a little sciencey, but no, just stop. Needs a fan edit, which cuts out most dialogue and excess bullshit, and would be a much shorter runtime. I think like maybe a third of what it is. I told my mom, yeah, edit out all this shit. It wouldn't make sense. It would make less sense, but I mean, like, it would be more artistic and fun to watch. I mean, I know now, oh my god, my handwriting. I know now what people mean by hate watch. Cause I knew what this would be. This is a Disney Marvel. It's not gonna be for me. But I checked it out anyway, because I thought maybe there's a chance it might be a little cool, but it wasn't. Okay, and then the last thing on my notes is there was this one moment in the show where one of the old man Loki, he's like, we're the god of outcasts, which I'm like, yes, bitch. Yes, this is the only, basically sums up the only reason I'm even checking out this show. Because I don't give a fuck about superheroes. I don't give a fuck. I'm only interested in very select small things. Like, I like Batman villains. I don't like Batman himself. He's an asshole and a loser. And I don't appreciate what he stands for, but I like his villains. He has the coolest villains, so I'll watch Batman's things. And I like, and I'm into tricksters. So, in a sense, that's the only reason why I gave the show a chance. Because anything that has to do with trickster, gods, and things like that. That's why I watched Joker, which I liked. This is why I watched this show. If they came out with an Anansi show, if they came out with a Coyote show, or Janice, who you never fucking hear about, or any of these other motherfuckers, I will give it a shot because I just like tricksters. And the reason for that is what the dude said in the show. A moment of profundity? founded. I don't know, whatever. However you would say that. Because it's like, yeah, those are, those are the gods that represent, in mythology, that represent people like me, people who don't fit in, people who have a hard time just doing basic shit, like getting a job, even though you're nice, you're kind-hearted, you don't mean anybody any harm, you're just trying to live your life, and yet something about you just turns people off. And so you have a hard time with basic shit like making friends, keeping friends, getting a job, keeping a job, making money, supporting yourself, getting a place to live. Anything basic that just you required for life is harder for you because you're just different. Not for any fault of your own. It's just because you don't fit in. So that's, I always relate to these characters in mythology and stuff like that. So any like pop culture thing that has to do with it, I just want to see what the pop culture is doing with it and what they have to say about it, But this show fucking, it was so bad. Anyway, okay. So, which is, like I said, is what I expect because it's Disney. What do you want from Disney? I mean, they're one of the biggest tyrannical empires out there. And when my mom was like, they have no room. They have no room to be trying to say the stuff they're saying, But anyway, okay, good. 6 minutes. Okay, that means I have 14 minutes to give a little recap. So, okay, let me see if I can even remember. Because we watched one episode a night. So, it's like a week ago. Okay. Beginning of the show. Basically, it starts off, it's in one of the other movies, and keep in mind, I have not seen any of the other Marvel movies, none of them. I told you Thor, the first Thor, is the worst, one of the worst, I think the worst movie I've ever seen, because, aside from the Beast of Yucca Flats, but, you know what? I didn't turn off the Beast of Yucca Flats halfway through. I turned Thor off halfway through. So, what does that say? Anyways, it starts off to one of the other movies, I think, Endgame or one of those things. Anyways, all the superheroes are there. They're doing something, I don't know what, trying to do some hero shit. They have Loki captured. Then he gets this like little cube thing, which I think it would be so, oh my god, can you imagine a crossover where that cube was like the lament box from Hellraiser? That would have been another movie entirely. Anyways, so he gets this little thing which they call a Tesseract. Which is obviously ripped off from A Wrinkle in Time, and it's this thing that lets you, I don't know, travel through space and time or whatever. So he gets that, so he travels to, I don't know, like Mongolia or something like that, and then, essentially, these fucking time cops show up, and they're like, you're under arrest, and despite all the other magic and, like, time travel and dimension things and all this crazy shit that goes on in the superhero world, in the Marvel universe or whatever, and all the other superhero universes, not even just Marvel, because, they basically can get away with anything. These time cops are like, no, we're cool with all that shit, but we're not cool with you coming here, because apparently that just broke fate, or whatever. So they take him to jail, and he's like, what the fuck's going on, what the fuck's going on? They're like, well, this is a jail for all the people who, fucked up, or, like, basically these people are like, we are the gods of the universe, essentially, and, like I said, they have this stupid, which I'm sure is normal in Marvel movies, but like I said, I don't watch those movies, so, and part of the reason I don't watch them is because I don't like this type of dialogue and personalities, and I don't like any of this shit, so, it's just a circle. So, anyways, what was I gonna say? Right, so they're, like, essentially in their own way, in their techno-babbly way, what they say, basically, is, like, we're the gods of the universe, we're essentially, like, the fates, we see everything, we're totally omnipresent in, like, not only our universe, but all the universes, and, everything. Everything is under our control, and we see every moment of every timeline ever, and basically they're, like, if anybody gets out of line with what we saw as being past, present, and future, your fate, your destiny, all this shit, if you get out of line, and you fuck that up, and you don't go along the path that we have foreseen, then you come here to this jail, because we can't be having that shit, because apparently they think that if people get out of line, that it's, like, this is what they said, so basically they're like, oh, in the past, everybody just did whatever they wanted, and all these magical people just went willy-nilly all over the place, and they created all these different parallel universes, and, or there was already parallel universes, but people were just creating more and more and more, like the typical sci-fi thing, like, philosophical sci-fi thing that went back to whatever, which is like, you know, the butterfly effect thing, like every decision you make creates another universe, and so it's basically infinite, you know, shit like that. Like me saying this word that I just said, that created a new universe. Oh shit, I just moved this way, that created another new one. So every single, literally every fucking nanosecond creates like a new shit, you know? And they're like, oh, you know, because people are just so fucking power hungry and assholes, you know, they all thought of trans dimensionally or whatever, and they caused like an apocalypse of apocalypses, and everybody was at war, and it all was terrible, and you know, blah 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 blah. So they're like, we're trying to prevent like complete destruction or whatever the fuck, and by making everybody stay on this like timeline, blah blah blah. So then Loki tells them to fuck themselves because he can do whatever he wants. And this version of Loki, that guy was like, okay, this version of Loki, it's just funny because this show is all about versions of things, you know? They call them variants. But yeah, different versions of things, which I think actually had the potential to be very meta and fun and deep, because it's like, seeing as all these people are like characters that were already in comic books and shit like that, I think it's fun, it would be fun to be like, okay, yeah, all these different versions, like every time somebody writes a fan fiction, that's a different version. Every time a new movie comes out, that's a different version. Every time a new comic book is made, that's a new version. And it comes from these like myths, but obviously the myths were changed, even in the past, way back in ancient times. Every time a new storyteller tells the story, that's a different version, you know? So there's like literally infinite versions. So it would have been cool if they went that route with the show, but they didn't. So, where am I now? I'm like totally even lost in myself. Alright, so basically, this version of Loki, the comic book version, I don't know, because like I said, I haven't watched any of the Thor movies, sure as hell haven't read any of the comics. If there's TV shows, I ain't seen them, so I don't know anything about this version of Loki, and I only know like the mythological stories I've heard, but essentially, this dude is pretty much like in name only. He's totally different. He has different skills. His personality is way different. Like basically this dude, he's like very power hungry, and he's like, you know, I want to be on top. I don't want anyone else to, you know, and you know what else is confusing? He keeps bouncing around with what he's saying in between, like he's saying like, nobody should be in charge, I love chaos, blah blah blah. But then literally like a second later he'll be like, well, people suck because of chaos, so I should be in charge of everybody. It's like, which one is it, bitch? Like, this is like some hypocritical ass shit. I mean, if he wants to say, I want to have free will, but nobody else should have it, that makes sense, so just say that. But, like, it seemed like he was just going back and forth with being like, you guys shouldn't be in control, nobody should be in control, like, you're just a bunch of authoritarian bullshitters. And then, like I said, like the next second he'd be like, well, you can't trust people, people suck, you know, who was that philosopher, whoever in the past, that had that theory of like the war of all against all, like if you don't have a society, you have a war of everyone. That's a state of nature, dude, where he's like, you have a war of everyone against everyone, and life is nasty, brutish, short, solitary, and something else. It was 5 things. Solitary, poor, nasty, British, and short. Yeah, I remembered. Thanks to Tom Ritchie for that one, with the super pony. Anyway, that's like one of the major themes of the show, but, okay, where was I? Right, so this Loki, he's saying like, yeah, like, I want to be in charge, and, you know, I'm like this great guy, I'm like, you know, motherfucking King of the Mountain and shit like that, which, in the myths, I don't get that at all. Like, I told my mom, I'm like, the ironic thing is that I feel like in the myth stories that I've heard, that Loki is kind of like one of the only ones that doesn't seem to desire power. He just gets like, and he doesn't even do, okay, I'm not like a history folklore expert or anything like that. I just heard what I've heard. But in the like 5 stories that I have heard, like, over and over, it's like, he gets blackmailed. He gets, like, used. Like, he just does stupid shit. But it's like he's more just, like, a dumbass. Not, like, malicious. And anyways, where am I? I'm trying to recap this show, and I'm all over the goddamn place, like I knew I would be. Anyways, yeah, they take him into this prison. He goes through all this dumb processing to show how extra they are. And, you know, they're just very into their, like, systems and everything like that. And then they take him before this judge, and she's like, okay, just throw him in the recycler and, you know, recycle him. But then fucking Owen Wilson comes in, and he's like, no, I want this guy, like, you should give him to me. And the judge is like, I forgot why, but basically after some stupid bullshit dialogue, Owen Wilson gets custody of him, and then he takes him in a room. Stop it! Oh, I remember. See, I'm forgetting because this was like 8 days ago, but, I forgot to mention, okay. See, the show seemed like it could go somewhere in the first place, but then it didn't. So, basically, in between this prison stuff, there's also this, like, serial killer, essentially, who's, like, going to all these different, because, you know, these prison people, they have, like, power over all time and space, so they can go anywhere and be there anytime. So, like, their soldiers are going around, and they're getting killed, basically. They're getting killed off, and Owen Wilson's, like, investigating that, I guess. So, he's like, oh, Loki can, help me figure out, like, who the killer is. So, I guess he tells that to the judge, and he takes Loki into this room, and Owen Wilson's character, he pissed me off so fucking much. I'm just like, I didn't know Owen Wilson could be so annoying. So, kudos to him as an actor, I guess, because he pulled off being, like, kind of like that, I haven't seen a character I hated so much since that bitch from Harry Potter, Miss Umbridge or whatever her name was. The way she just would say something really fucked up and then just smile, he's on the same level as her. They should do, like, a Bonnie and Clyde together. Like, because he was seriously pissing me off, because, okay, basically, you put Loki in a room, and then he's, like, they went back and forth with this whole, like, fucking bullshit of, like, you can't control me, yes I can, no you can't, yes I can, blah blah blah, type of shit. And then he just starts going in with all these insults, and, like, trying to basically, like, psychologically break him down, and say, like, try to use all this, like, all these, like, you know, kind of, like, gulag tactics of, like, he tries to, like, you know, he tries to make Loki feel like he's nothing, and he tries to tell him, like, you know, anything you ever thought was a strength, it's not, you're just a sad, pathetic little loser, and, like, I can do whatever I want to you, you're just my little fuck toy, and, you know, he says it all with a smile. He's just like, you're nothing, you're weak, you're sad, you're, like, you're just some fucking emo teenager with problems, your magic sucks, you know, you're not deep, you're going nowhere with your life, and just like, oh, what is it, who hurt you? The only way you could ever be the way you are is because something bad happened to you in the past, and we should just fix that, and you should just go to therapy, because you're just a loser, you know, and, you know, just going in, just railing him, you know, and, really being annoying, really pissing me off, doing the whole, I remember there was some repetition in there that kind of reminded me of, Good Will Hunting, the part where he's just, like, saying it's not your fault over and over again, and that shit just makes me want to strangle a bitch. I just can't with that shit. Like, when they just start drilling you, I swear to God, like, I would, if that was me, I would have been in a straitjacket within, like, 5 minutes, because I don't know if I would be able to contain my rage with somebody drilling me like that. Like, but anyways, then he gets on, my 20 minutes is almost up. I might do another 20 minutes, because I'm so bad. I'm supposed to be working. Okay, let me cut it off here.